Now we are done with the NBA, and I'm going to talk some G League because the G League bubble kicked off on Wednesday. I was super, super excited to watch the G League as a whole, but more specifically, this G League Ignite team, which this is their first year established. This team uh, is has signed a couple of high school graduates who decided not to go to college and instead go straight to the G League, play a year professionally, and then be eligible for the NBA draft. This is the first year that they're experimenting with it. It's really interesting because this might open the door for more top high school recruits to skip college, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing if you know for sure you're probably going to go to the NBA. And we've got two top 10 picks on this Ignite team in Jalen Green and Jonathan Kuminga, and then another uh, draft hopeful in Dacian Nix and Isaiah Todd. And yeah, this team I was really excited to watch because it's a mix of these kind of top four prospects and then quite a few old guys. We got Raptors longtime player Amir Johnson. If anyone remembers that name, he was on the team for a while and just like a classic veteran presence. And I was really excited to watch this, and it was great. It was on at 11 a.m. They kicked off the game, and so I was able to watch them play against the Santa Cruz Warriors. And the G League bubble is going to go for about a month of regular season games. I think they're playing 25 games or 15 games in 25 days, and then they'll go top 8 teams out of the 18 teams in the league go straight into the playoffs. So a lot of reps. I know on Saturday, so that's tomorrow, the G League Ignite will go up against Raptors 905, Malachi Flynn, Jalen Harris, Elise Johnson. We'll get to see some of their play against these top rookies. But I want to talk about this game, so I'll get right into it. Jalen Green is the top 3 projected pick coming out into this draft. He has been comped to like a Paul George. He's been comped to other kind of wings that maybe aren't the tallest wings, but are in that kind of average setting and create their own shot. He's a fantastic shooter from outside. He's got a great mid-range game, and there's you can tell he's going to be great at slashing as well because he had a couple plays where he could hang in the air and attack the rim. He's a little bit skinnier than your traditional like defensive stopper, so he's going to look to be a little bit more like a scorer. And he struggled in this game. And I think it was because it's his first professional basketball game, which makes sense. He's facing grown men now, not the high schoolers that he played against almost a year ago. Uh, there is a lot of pressure on him to come out and perform, and his game is a little bit more tailored to finding the nuances and creating his own shot. And for a first professional game, that's normally not going to go well. The more impressive player in this game for me was Jonathan Kuminga. He was fantastic. Uh, he's going to rocket up draft boards because of his body type. We saw in the draft this year, Patrick Williams, who was a bench player at Florida State, went all the way up to number 4 on Chicago because people saw that body type he has is just so well suited to guard kind of the best players in the league at the wing position. But he also has shown a little bit of offensive game, and people just love how that body type guys can really grow into it rather than being slimmer and having to bulk up. He's already got that foundation for strength, and if he's got that lateral quickness too, it's got a great package. And Jonathan Kuminga has a similar body type, and he was flying all over the place. He was spinning out of the post. He was attacking guys. He had this incredible 40-foot bounce pass to Jalen Green, who two-handed windmilled it to avoid the block. Like, that was the signature play. I retweeted it. I posted on my Instagram. It was fantastic. That was like, this is the future right here in one play. And he seals the game, G League Ignite up 3, and he rises up and meets Jordan Poole at the rim and just swats his shot away and stares him down to end the game. There's 3 seconds left, and this kid came in and he's got a ton of confidence. And there was a viral video going around with them in warmups, and he absolutely posterized the guy on his own team. Like, this Kuminga kid is just oozing with athleticism. And at his body type, I think he's going to move up the draft boards because he's showing confidence in his first professional game going right at guys. So really exciting to watch him moving forward. The other kind of prospect that stood out in this game for me was Dacian Nix. He came off the bench and gave some great minutes for G League Ignite. He has another interesting body type. He's like super thick for a point guard, and he's got great hair. And he comes off the bench, and he's got a little bit of nuance too. His first bucket was like he went right at the center, hung in the air, adjusted, and made a tough layup. And he had a couple plays where he'd be in the pick and roll. He'd have this herky jerky motion, stop, bump into the guy, attempt the shot, try and draw a foul, stuff like that. And at his size, if he's got moves like that, I think he's going to be a solid prospect. Could project to be a starting point guard on a team at a certain point because of his size and ability to see over defenses, but also generate attack the rim, finish through contact, generate contact in the pick and roll, and find open shooters. So I liked what I saw from him, and it's going to be interesting to see. This is their very first professional game. They've got at least 14 more left. I'd like to see them in the playoffs. That'd be really fun to see them in the G League playoffs. Who knows what's going to happen? I didn't expect them to win a ton of games, but they came out and beat Santa Cruz Warriors in their first one, so that's a big start for them. And fun to watch these prospects. I briefly want to touch on the team's kind of setup. They've got kind of three vets in particular that I want to talk about was Amir Johnson, Jarrett Jack, and Bobby Brown. They've all been around for a while. They've all played at varying degrees, NBA, G League for a number of years. And it seems like those guys are great veteran presence. They're going to teach these guys how to be professional, how to operate. Obviously, this bubble is a new scenario for most of these guys because they weren't in the NBA bubble. So it's going to just be about maintaining that mindset and going to work every day. And I think like Amir Johnson, especially, he was beloved in Toronto. I think he's just a great, great, great guy to have around these kids to teach them how to be the best players and people they can be. And I'm hoping this G League Ignite experiment works because it would be great to see some of these polished high school kids skip college and come right to a professional league. And we've seen it be successful for LaMelo last year, who played in Lithuania and then in Australia, and a couple other kids who have skipped out on college to go professional. And like, it's just a different thing when you're playing against grown men who are fighting for opportunities to make it back to the NBA or make it back to the Euro League. It's a little bit different than college. And so it will be interesting to watch the dynamic of this team. I think those veteran presences are really important because late in this fourth quarter, the Ignite went to Jarrett Jack down the stretch, and he was lights out. He didn't really miss. He had the game winning mid-range jumper to put them up three. Kind of acted as the dagger with the Kuminga block, and so cool to see from them. I also wanted to shout out Jeremy Lin, who is playing for the Santa Cruz Warriors on the other side. He played hard. He played really hard. He had some great defensive stops against Jalen Green. He stripped him once. He made a couple tough layups in traffic. He took, I think, about three like hard charges on back-to-back possessions at one point in the third quarter, and was just had to be kept being helped off the floor by his teammates, and he looked like he was in pain, but he was putting his body out on the line, and he really wants to come back to the NBA. And who knows, this is a great opportunity in the Gubble for guys to get that opportunity to show what they're worth and make their way back to the association.
It's nice timing then. If it's like a month-long bubble, then playoffs, that'll kind of wrap up right towards the end of the NBA season, and the teams will have an opportunity to, like, maybe their ranks are a bit depleted. They're looking for one extra spark, one thing to try right before the playoffs, or just one more weapon. So I like the timing of that.
Yeah, exactly. It is great. All right. Last thing about the Gubble I want to talk about is I forgot that they were doing this, and then I heard it on the broadcast, is the G League is the developmental league, right? But it's not just developmental for the players. It's developmental for the refs. It's developmental for the rules, for the things that they want to change in the game of basketball as a whole. And it's a very experimental zone for the NBA. And so you've got referees who are getting kind of their first reps in professional basketball games. And the things I want to talk about are the rules. So in the G League, one free throw for 2 points. They don't do two free throws.
Hmm.
It's one shot, and you either get the full two or not. They're experimenting with that. That might help speed up the pace of play. It's one shot for 2 points until the last 2 minutes of the game when it goes two shots. So they're experimenting with that. And the other thing they're experimenting with that I saw in this game was a reset timeout. So essentially, late game, you have your normal amount of timeouts, but you have one extra timeout that you can use to advance the ball. You get 14 seconds on the clock. You advance the ball to half court, no timeout. So you don't get to huddle. But it's basically if you have no timeouts left and a team makes that free throw, you're in the fouling stage and trying to catch up. You can call that reset timeout. Move the ball up to half court. You got 14 seconds on the shot clock and no timeout. So it's essentially just an extra timeout, but you don't huddle up, which I thought was really interesting. And Santa Cruz ended up using it for their last possession. In the end, Jordan Poole gets blocked, but I thought it was really interesting to see the refs kind of hurrying them up the court because they may be trying to talk about what they want to do. So it'll be interesting. I think coaches will just give a couple of plays in if they call a full timeout and say, if we have to call this reset, this is what we're running out of it. But and another interesting little thing that the NBA is experimenting with in the G League, and there'll be a couple of other rule changes that we may see them experiment with. So interesting to see that moving forward and if that might come to the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, speaking when you have like a casual fan watch a basketball game with you, the thing they comment on often is like the pace is kind of brutal, like of the last quarter of any game. I mean, it's strange because so much of the game it feels like there's so much action that there's almost no action, and then the last bit can just be really rough to stay on your toes for. And I find that myself even less casual fan. I mean, maybe just too spoiled by hockey. It doesn't bug me quite as much in football because knowing with three timeouts, but the when you get like six timeouts called in like a 8 minute of game clock span, it can be kind of rough. So I'm happy to advocate for a little experimentation to improve that flow a little.
Absolutely. So the G League Ignite, they play today at 3 p.m., probably around the time when this podcast will have been out, probably for a couple hours. And then they play the Raptors 9:05 tomorrow at 7 p.m., which is right in the heart of all the other sports. So don't know if I'll catch too much of it, but definitely something to follow. And I had missed out talking about my college prospects recently because of just the chaoticness of other sports kicking off. And so this is an opportunity to look at some of the other prospects besides the regulars that I had been talking about in previous pods. So looking forward to that. We'll take a quick break and come back for some talking hockey.